And Kevyn Orr is with us now in studio to give you some answers. Mr. Orr, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Let's start with that sound bite from the pension board. How do you respond to that?
Well, you know, everybody's entitled to representation. I know that Mark has taken his duty seriously and wants to make sure that they're capable and able to respond to anything I have. But the reality is we're going to take a look as we're required to do under the statute, and we're going to take appropriate action.
This seems to be a very big tipping point, and they're under the understanding that they are protected under state law. So is there an opportunity for you, I know maybe you don't want to go through bankruptcy, but through federal law to usurp the state to get that amount of money paid out to the pensions down? Can you do that?
Well, it's not just a question of the amount of money paid out to the pensions. I mean, federal law has supremacy over state law. That's federalism. And the pensions have certain obligations to meet there. There's a phrase, unaccrued actuarial liabilities. That's the amount of money you have on hand to pay out people in the future. I have an obligation to do an analysis of whether they have enough assets to make those obligations, and we're doing that. We have a preliminary report, and depending upon their funding levels at 80% or below, there are opportunities for me, perhaps to put someone else in, or to allow them to go along with the ordinary course, and we're going to address that.
You have a critical meeting on Friday we've been talking about and alluded to there. 2 days meeting with the creditors. We are hearing you're going to offer 10 cents on the dollar to these creditors. Is that correct? Is that a ballpark? What is your offer going to be to them?
Joanne, I'm going to take a dodge in that question because I think it's fair to give the stakeholders the first cut of what we're going to offer, and that's why we've been somewhat cryptic in terms of the actual numbers and dynamics involved. However, as soon as that meeting is over, we're going to make the discussions in the meeting and the presentation that we have, it's a book, available to the public, so it's all transparent, everyone see it, but we want to give them the opportunity to see it first. They're the ones that have to consider what their position is going to be and how they're going to respond to the concessions we're going to ask.
And how long will you give them after that meeting to answer, you know, meet those needs or no?
You know, I've said we're going to take a first cut in the first couple of weeks. I would anticipate that we would have some substantive discussions certainly within the first week or two. I'm anticipating that we're going to have to make a determination of our own within the first 30 days as to whether or not we're making progress and therefore deserving of having additional discussions. And if we're not, or at least not the kind of progress with the numbers of people that we need to make, then we'll make a determination about what next.
We went to social media to find viewers to ask questions for you. Scott Helms asked this: can you and will you protect the DIA?
You know, the whole DIA discussion is, I just ask the question as I must. I mean, there are 15 buckets of assets in the cities, and I'm a fiduciary, and I have to ask the question about it. One of the things I have to emphasize, the DIA is an asset of the city, and I had to ask the question about it, and we're going to confront what the DIA role, if any, plays in this process in due course. But for purposes right now, we're not going to speak to DIA.
Okay. I would think if you were to ask people, if you were to poll people in Detroit what their issues are, what they want, maybe it wouldn't necessarily be the DIA right now because of the situation. Response times, public safety, fire, street lights, etc.
Which you said was your number one priority, if I remember.
So is the DIA on the table? Have you taken a look at how much that art is worth and the possibility of liquidating that?
We have not appraised it. We have not examined the possibility of a liquidation, but public safety is certainly a priority. I've said that consistently. We stood up the lighting authority. Chief Logan is retiring, so we have a new police chief coming in who's a change agent. We want to get to that. I want to examine, for instance, some of the practices and work rules we have both at police and fire so we can get more responsive. I think all citizens want that, and that's what we're really going to focus on early on.
Eve Burrows asked us on social media today, Facebook, what positive impact could bankruptcy have on the city? So if it gets to that point, Detroiters, I think, are scared to death of that. What can you tell them? Is there something, you know, positive out of that?
You know, I was asked that at the public meeting the other night, and I said, you know, I have to be a little careful because as a bankruptcy practitioner for now nearly 30 years, I have a certain comfort level. That's my wheelhouse, and I don't have necessarily the fear of it. And certainly we've seen in some instances, some of the largest corporations in the city, GM and Chrysler, very successful outcomes as a result of bankruptcy. They're thriving and making excellent products, being highly competitive. So for me, I would say to the citizens, don't be afraid. Bankruptcy is just a process. That's all it is. It is a process by which we have certain federal law that stands on top of state law and other rules and regulations to really get down and restructure a balance sheet so that any enterprise, here a municipality in Chapter 9 or private sector business in Chapter 11, can move forward with a new life. We call it a, you know, fresh look. That's all it is. They shouldn't be concerned about it, but there's certain benefits that come out of that. Shedding burdensome debt is one of them.
Chapter 9 is so rare. You take a look at GM, they got a loan from the federal government. You take a look at personal bankruptcy, you can go against your salary. We don't really have that option. I mean, there's really nothing that the city of Detroit produces. So how is it that you can, through bankruptcy, pay this off, or maybe without bankruptcy, how to avoid this?
Well, the city produces revenue. I mean, over $1 billion in revenue, and the statute says, 436 says, that I have to find a way to restructure the balance sheet so that the city has the opportunity to go forward in a sustainable fashion. So you take that revenue, you look at the obligations. You know, it's what I said Monday night. We have roughly 15.6 to $17 billion of long-term obligations. Some of that is over at the water department, some it's not. But even if we took every dime we made every year, we didn't pay another police officer, another city worker, we didn't fill a pothole, we didn't send ambulances on calls, took every dime we had, no 4th of July. It would take 17 years to pay off that debt. Even if we had $200 or $250 million of free cash out of $1 billion budget, 25%, it would take 68 years to pay off that debt. Okay, none of us in this room would be alive, likely. There may be some new technology. but the point is, we cannot keep on the current course and achieve a sustainable fashion. That's the benefit we have to go through, whether out of court or in a bankruptcy.
Well, you got a tough job. We wish you the best, and please let us know, what you're doing along the way. I think transparency is big.
On Friday as well, after that meeting, we're looking for all that information coming out of it, all right?
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Kevin, very much. Good to have you with us.